listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is July 4th, 2023, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing this fine Tuesday, July the 4th?
Spencer, hello. Yes, it is a holiday in the U.S., and that means we have time to record a podcast, I guess.
That's kind of
where my life is at this point. I'm doing well. It's like super hot in my neck of the woods.
It's
I'm
same
a little
here.
sunburnt. I'm a little worn out, but yeah, we're here. We are on the eve of patch. This is the last week of this patch, and that's pretty exciting. I think there's some good stuff coming, and it's only been a minute since we spoke last because we recorded late last week, and then I think the office has probably been on vacation or holiday, or we haven't seen a lot of official communication since we last spoke. Like, there's been stuff pushed to the game that hasn't been documented in like hotfix blogs and stuff like that. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But it's a little bit of a quiet week, obviously, with holidays in North America and everything like that. But we're on the verge of some cool stuff. So it's a good week to get caught up and ready for 10.1.5.
Yeah, it's also a good week for the folks who are like, hey, you know what? I just want to take it a little bit easier this week. Let's get a little break in before we get new content pushed. That's fine too. Whatever it is you want to do with your time, I think this week is one of those really nice weeks of get everything organized, get everything sorted, or take a little break from the raid stuff. You're going to get some changes and some, tuning passes that come through next week and hop into those. Either one works. It's also, a big push for that, wins of extra experience and extra, reputation gain going on. You got to get that in before that goes away soon. So be sure you're taking advantage of all the little benefits this last little week before we hit our next little patch that comes out with some more quality of life.
And content too. The cool thing about this one is like there's new story stuff. There's all kinds of new features. In the past, the .5 patches were kind of just like, all right, let's clean up some stuff. Let's shave off some, some sharp edges around some parts of the content. And this is like, it's like some of that, and then it's a whole bunch of other stuff too. So that's really cool.
Yeah, Mega Dungeons.
And it's also moving in the Dormu Infinite Dragonflight direction, which is kind of what I thought would be a big part of this expansion from the jump, and kind of hasn't been. So I'm pretty excited about that. I think that's a cool angle of the story for many years, going back to like, I don't know, man, Wrath. Wrath is what I really think of, like when you would do like the Stratholme dungeon and you fight the Infinite Dragonflight in, and I was like, that was the moment for me where I was like, oh, they got to get more Infinite Dragonflight stuff in this game, and
it will be really neat to see that storyline come through. Yeah.
It only took like 15 years, but here we are.
I'm excited to see a lot more of that storyline come about, and it's a neat thing to think about that we're closing in on that like 8-month point before we start looking at what's going to be next. I think is probably, what do you think? BlizzCon might be the time where we actually find out what the next expansion is.
I mean, I think they have to, right? Like, if you're doing a BlizzCon and it's an off year for a WoW expansion, then you're announcing the WoW expansion.
Typically.
Like, the only time they haven't done that was, like, obviously for Dragonflight, there was no BlizzCon at all, not even a BlizzCon line. So they had the benefit of sitting on the announcement until like April, and then it was just all hype train all the way through because, well, like, Alpha was out 3 months after the announcement. That's not going to happen with the next expansion.
Yeah.
And then the other time they didn't do BlizzCon was Legion, actually, because they did Gamescom, which was a couple months earlier, because Warlords was such a mess, right? Yeah, like, everybody was so demoralized from Warlords, and they like cut bait on Warlords, which is why we only got the one big content patch. Mm-hmm. They're like, whatever, let's just make the next one awesome. And so they did an early announcement at Gamescom, which was cool because the Legion announcement was just so epic. It was like, oh my God, can you believe all the stuff that they're doing? Like, they got the formula for this one, but then it was another 3-4 months that we knew about it, that we had to wait to get into beta or start like playing the live game. I like the shorter cycle myself, but I mean, like, it's weird to think about, but like, we're gonna move pretty quick here. Once 10.1.5 is out next week, 10.1.7 will be on PTR probably within 2-3 weeks of that.
Yep.
that'll probably be a 2-3 month PTR cycle tops. Then 10.2 will be on PTR like right away. You figure we'll have that by about, November, give or take. It's season 3 in about the same time. And
at BlizzCon, they'll announce what the last patch is, typically with some sort of teaser, and then they'll also announce the next expansion. So the question will be, do we get like 10.2.5 and 10.2.7 and then a 10.3 cycle, or is 10.2.7 kind of the end of Dragonflight and then we move forward? Yeah, that'll be the curious thing to find out. Anyways, lots of exciting stuff going on. We'll stick a little closer to the present. We got BlizzCon on our mind because there was an announcement last week, which we threw in at the tail end of the show, about tickets going on sale, which is going to be this weekend. For those of you who are, paying attention to it and wanting to actually jump in on it, we'll talk about it a little bit more farther into the show. But yeah, this Saturday, I just want to throw it at the top of the show here as well, is when you got BlizzCon tickets going on sale. All right, before we hop into what's going on this week, Jason, is there anything last week you want to highlight about your play?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we talked a lot about, because I had played a bunch between Tuesday and Wednesday night before we recorded on Thursday, but we actually ended up doing a little bit of raid on Sunday just because people were around, and we were like, let's go do normal unlock because we'll kill Sark and see if we get anything cool. So we did that, and it was fun, but we didn't get anything cool, unfortunately. Sark has some good stuff. The Trinket's really good. The Cloak's good. And we have, Evokers in the group that don't have their legendaries, so it was worth a shot, but didn't really work out. I ended up doing so many keys last week. Like, I probably did 10 keys or more. I don't know. It's the most keys I've done in forever. I only got 2 of them done in time, and I only got up to like 2455 rating from about 2440 or something. So I am firmly like just brick walled here, but last week was actually kind of a hard week. It
was. No, we talked about it.
I thought it was kind of a mixed bag, but in practice, I think it actually ended up being really difficult. So, I don't know. Not that some of the stuff I was doing wasn't doable, but it just didn't happen, Yeah. The good thing was, though, even though I was kind of beating my head against it and only getting like 5 fragments at a time, I did get enough to craft my bracers. So I got like 447 crafted bracers, 447 crafted boots. I'm pretty hooked up now. So I just have like a couple equipment slots left to use aspect crests on to get them up to 441. And then, at that point, I don't know if I'll even need crests, because I guess I'll have. It's a little tricky with rings and trinkets, because since you equip 2 of them, you got to use more crests than you otherwise would if it was like a bracer, for example. But I'm getting there with it, and the cool thing too is the upgrade system and the catalyst makes it really easy to unlock transmog. So I have the heroic set done. I'll have the mythic set done pretty soon. I think I might just need crests for that at this point. Actually, I don't know if I even need catalyst charges. So that's awesome to be able. I love collecting Mog, and especially the higher end Mog and getting the cool special effects. So being able to use the upgrade system and everything for that. That's been a huge benefit. The item upgrade system has completely changed the complexion of how you kind of approach the game and how you play your character and what is relevant to you. And it's going to be even better next week when we can get 441 stuff created at 441 or 444 all the way up to 447. So, just, put a bunch of time in and got some of that done. So I'm all caught up on my crafted gear for this exact moment in time, which is cool.
Nice. Very nice. All right, let's hop into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, so this week we got the Warlords of Draenor Time Walking event. It's what you've been asking for, is a Time Walking week overlapping with this experience buff during the final week of the experience buff that we have going on. I think it's the final week, pretty sure. We'll talk about that in a minute. It is, yeah. So I'm pretty sure it overlapped with the patch release. Okay, so we got the Sign of Iron buff up, where Warlords of Draenor reputations it's just reputation gains from combat and quests are increased by 50%. And characters level 60 and up can do time-walking versions of Auchindoun, Bloodmaw, Slagmines, Everbloom, Grimrail Depot, Shadowmoon Burial Grounds, and Skyreach. And of course, you get 385s out of this, and the vendor for time walking is selling 372s, and you get a cache of normal Aberrus gear for completing 5 of these time walking dungeons. But the biggest thing to highlight is just that these are very easy to plow through on a new character and get them all leveled up. If you have a level 60 character up who can get into this, it's a great way to max out your tune.
It's amazing. Like, I got to get the Demon Hunter in there this week. That is my goal. Is to because that's the last tank class I don't have at current max level. So these are, I mean, most of these are pretty fast runs. They're, the time walking tuning overall is very favorable these days. Time walking tuning sometimes has these ups and downs where it's like time walking is really like harder than I strictly would like it to be for something that's kind of pointless, right? It's not like a challenge. It's not supposed to be a challenging mode, but I feel like the tuning on it at this moment in time is very favorable. So these should be quick runs for most groups. And early on, yeah, you're getting about a level per dungeon, at 60. And then, it tapers off. But if you have some rested and you're hopping into these, this is like, I don't know, 15 dungeons or something, which are like 10-minute runs to get from 60 to 70. You're going to be in crap gear. But I feel like it's, considering we do have the Forbidden Reach tokens still, like 385 stuff from the tokens is not like horrendous. It'll get you into Zaralik, at least. You could start kind of playing the new stuff at 385. So that's not too bad. I don't know. I'm glad that this came around for one more overlap while the XP buff was up, because I didn't have time to do the DK and the DH last time. And now doing just the DH is not very daunting. I'll have plenty of time for that. So highly recommended for leveling this week. If you have tunes you want to get leveled up for patch, do this. Just do it. And yes, you'll come out the other side in garbage gear, but get crafted stuff, get 385 tokens, whatever, just get out into Zaralik, and then you can start building some item level.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be...
Quest alone will get you up there pretty quick, so yeah.
Yeah, I think that'll ultimately be more rewarding of a play experience than replaying campaign questing or doing world quests or whatever.
Yeah. Yep. And the dungeons aren't so bad as long as you don't roll, in my opinion, Sky Reach, which is kind of the one I dislike the most to have to do.
At least somebody in the group needs to know something to do in Sky Reach. Like, there are parts of it where groups, you're just going to get blown off the edge, or the big bird boss is going to kill you because you didn't hide behind a thing.
Yeah, or you get pelted to death by ranged attacks while you're running inside the incredibly against wind slow maze that you have to do. Yeah, yeah, that those sorts of things are going to happen. So just be ready for those, I guess. All right, aiding the Accord. Obviously, you want to pick that up and head out and do that to get you have to earn up your 3K rep and do whatever it is the task is that they assign for you this week, since they're all sort of randomized. And you get your bonus rewards for that. You also want to pick up, if you're going to be doing some heroic dungeons, the fighting is its own reward. That'll get you the 415 eye level trophy chest or 15 Drake Shadowflame crest fragments. And of course, PvP quests for the week are arena skirmishes and solo shuffle. So for those who are going to be rocking and rolling in their solo shuffle, be sure you just grab the PvP quest before you do it, because that way you're going to get the extra benefit from it. So make sure you're taking advantage of that. Warsong Scramble is our brawl. This is Warsong Gulch with way varied rules. They move the flags closer together to each other's bases. You can essentially cap the flag without having to have your flag at your base. And it's the first team to get to 10 caps. So it is a scramble, in other words, of who has the fastest character that can get from one side of the map to the other as fast as possible. Whoever does is going to end up winning. You can obviously have teams playing defense, but it is a scramble. I think scramble was the appropriate word they threw after Warsong for this one. So yeah, it's you get yourself some Marks of Honor, Conquest, and Honor stuff. This is another one I don't think you're a big fan of, eh, Jason?
It's fine. I like this better than Warsong with smaller teams that comes around with Deep
that
Six.
One. The teams of 6. Yeah.
Yeah, that just feels weird on this map. This one's okay. The thing is, the pace is so fast, which is the thing that I like about brawls, I guess. Like, if you're not going to mix up, if it's not going to be its own mode, like Cooking Impossible or Shadowpan Showdown, or even Deep Wind Dunk, then up the pace. They do that with Temple of Hot Mogu is like that, and I think Warsong Scramble's kind of like that. It's more frenetic. You could score at any time. You got to score more points, but there's just flags getting capped all the time. So it's all right. I mean, if you're looking for some fast-paced Warsong type gameplay,
you will definitely have a lot of combat, and you'll definitely have quick rounds. So that is attractive about this for sure. I gotcha. All right, Zakali Elders are your world bosses, obviously up, that you can go and kill down in Zaralek Cavern. Get yourself some 415 loot. And of course, Bascaron, the Shale Wing, the Earth Proto-Dragon in Waking Shores is the one dropping 395s for the week. And then Mythic Plus affixes are Tyrannical, Entangling, and Bursting. So bosses have more health, and inflict increased damage. And while in combat, entangling binds periodically appear and snare the player. And when slain, non-boss enemies explode, causing all players to suffer damage over time. And this effect stacks. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is actually probably one of your best tyrannical weeks you're going to run into. Yes, entangling is going to be a thing on these bosses, and dodging boss mechanics with entangling is going to be a thing that you're going to have to try and do. You can shapeshift out of them. You can, use your gnomish escape to get out of it. There's a lot of ways to sort of remove. You can Blessing of Freedom. There's lots of things that you can use to get rid of entangling. So there is counterplay to that. But bursting just doesn't affect bosses, which is just wonderful. So it's basically you're fighting a tyrannical boss with the occasional someone gets rooted and slowed, which means they have to essentially either adjust to run far enough away from their snare to be able to snap it and free up their character's movement speed, or they have to use an ability to break it, or they just deal with it because it's a boss where there isn't a ton of movement depending on which boss you're actually choosing to do. So it's great to it's I think great tyrannical week. It's probably one of the better ones we'll see.
I feel like that's true. I want to believe that in my heart.
You do? Yeah. All right. Good.
Yeah. Like sometimes we look at this and we go, that should be fine. Then it's like, this is really not fun.
Yeah.
And like, I believe, I could be wrong. I think there's one more combo we haven't seen, and then we're back around at the top of the rotation. So we're not all the way through, the first rotation of the season yet. So I believe this is the first time we've seen this combo. I don't know. It doesn't seem bad. Bursting is not as bad as it used to be. It can still result in death, so if you're not careful, but there's more counterplay to it now, and also I feel like just the way dungeons are designed overall is a bit more deliberate, right? So you sort of have these packs of like 5 mobs or something that you're pulling, and like you're not going to pull enough mobs into that where bursting is dangerous, right? Like as long as you don't kill one mob immediately and then you extend it constantly the whole time, then it's manageable. Entangling, it's the only second time we've seen it on live, but the first time it was around, I really didn't think it was a big deal. It is a snare effect, so snare breakers break it, which includes stuff like even avatar. Not like I want to use my avatar specifically to break an entangling, but if the shoe fits, right? Like if it's time to hit it and entangling is out, then fine. Blessing of Freedom. And if you have paladins that have the talent where they can throw blessings on other players and you can freedom your healer or whatever, I mean, it's nice. Again, there's plenty of counterplay. The traditional counterplay method of just like walking out of the circle is not that bad, in my opinion. I mean, you're right that in certain boss instances, it can create some problems. Like there are bosses that require pretty specific positioning, right? And so if you can't move, or like moving is really not a good idea at the time, then that could be a problem. But I feel like overall, considering how much of a dungeon involves fighting trash, that's where you're mostly going to see entangling, and you're going to have plenty of opportunities to safely break it. So yeah, I mean, I haven't done any yet. I mean, the server's only been up for 2 hours as we record this, so I haven't had a chance to do any, but my gut says this is a pretty good tyrannical week, so I'm hoping I can start, getting some points this week, start getting my fortunes turned around, get Keystone Hero, maybe start getting some 20s. I don't know. I don't know if this week's going to be the week with the holiday and everything, but I'm ready. I'm ready to get through there. I think part of the problem is really like Warrior is very off meta this season, and we are, as a class, we're missing a lot of tools to really excel this season, and I haven't felt that in a while, but it's just like, oh, this would be so much easier if I was on a paladin. If I could just do what a paladin does, like this would be so much easier for me.
Right.
And it's not really an excuse. I mean, I have a paladin leveled. I could switch it over and devote my energy to it. I'm a warrior main. I like the play style. I don't want to play anything but warrior, so I have to work around those limitations and do the best I can. So. Yeah. I mean, part of it is still, a learning experience too. I guess my fear here is that like, by the time these dungeons start feeling comfortable, we're really going to be picking up steam into season 3, and maybe rotating out 8 dungeons every 6 months is just a little too much. Like maybe we keep half the pool and rotate the other half. As that whole concept is fleshed out, right? It used to be we had the same dungeon pool all expansion.
Yeah.
And at the end of Shadowlands, it went, hey, what if we just flip the dungeon pool for this season? And then for Dragonflight, it was like, what if we had like curated dungeon pools every season? I think maybe there's a medium in there where you could have some like familiar dungeons that maybe persist 2 seasons in a row or something. And
the ones that I think people ran the most might be an interesting way to do it. Of like, what are the ones that seem the most popular amongst players? Maybe do it. Maybe do another one of those votes that they've done before, where they put up a vote and say, "Hey, which 2 dungeons do you want to keep from this to that?" And they could be from any of the expansions that we've essentially had. So if you want to keep Freehold around for another pass, you could keep Freehold around for another pass, because that's just something they leave in for the next rotation. I think that might be a neat way to do it. You can end up with a curated pool. It might even be neat to do that for the final patch of an expansion, is have an entirely curated pool where you go, all right, here's all of the different Mythic Plus dungeons that we have. Which ones do you want to have inside this last season? Might be a neat way to go about it, to let players pick. And essentially, if there's going to be troll answers, and there might be troll answers, but if there's going to be people who actually pick really fun, enjoyable stuff, you could end up with a pretty cool season of Keystone things. So might be neat to see what they choose to do.
I mean, it's a relatively new philosophy, right? Having the rotating pool. So, I'm not saying that this is a thing that I think desperately needs to change. I'm just thinking, like, as we move forward, maybe learning 8 new dungeons top to bottom every 6 months, maybe that is a little bit more. I mean, granted, we've seen some of these dungeons as Keystones before, but it's in a different context. Your class plays differently than it did in BFA and in Legion. It just does. It's a different world. The dungeons themselves are different. Stuff is moved around. It behaves differently. So it's not, yes, I did plenty of Freehold and Underrod in 2019 and 2020, but it's not, I don't know how much it translates to the 2023 game. So I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing, like maybe going forward, we have some parts of the pool rotate out and some parts stick for 2 seasons in a row. And it kind of helps people have some familiarity, some continuity. So there's keys they know they can smash to get rewards. And then there's other stuff that they're learning.
Yeah, agreed. The Winds of Sanctuary buff, the thing I've talked about a little bit already, the experience gains dropping by 50%, and increased all reputation gains by 50%. Those are both going away next week. This is your last week to get that 50% increase on both experience and reputation. So be sure that you're taking advantage while you can. I mean, as Jason said, he's hoping it would overlap with another time walking week. It does. So he's going to be power leveling. I'll continue to do my world questing to continue to catch up on reputations where I can. So making sure that I get those up, and that's it for the Winds of Sanctuary. I hope they bring it back. I hope there's another buff period that they throw in there that's this level of increase, because it certainly helps with catch up mechanics. I still haven't maxed out all of the reputations because I haven't been essentially playing the game as often as I would need to do that. I still play 3 or 4 days a week, but I just haven't not actually been able to get all the reputations maxed regardless. So it's one of those cases where, you need to, I guess, have another round of this to help people catch up and get all the unlocks for the expansion, unless I just want to come back and do it later, which is what I might end up having to do, is 2 expansions from now or something. I roll back into Dragonflight and get all my reputations finished out for Renown rewards.
Right. Yeah, this is obviously this one was to tie in with Diablo 4 launch. That was like a huge launch across the company. It was such a publicized game leading up to release, and so it's like, oh, we got them in BNet. Like let's try to see if they want to check out World of Warcraft again or whatever. I think it'd be a good idea to have some kind of thing like this in the last couple weeks before basically every patch. Now, granted, you have patches like every couple months at this point, so that means that you're sort of de-incentivizing people to do these activities, and when they know that there's a buff coming. But I think it would still be worth it.
Yeah, it's the same thing as we see in the entire methodology for World of Warcraft. Of there are some limited time rewards you can only get within a certain time frame, seasonal rewards, that sort of thing. But everything else in World of Warcraft for an expansion gets easier to earn as time goes on. That's literally how the game has always worked. There is no easier time to fully gear a character and get a character rolling than the end of an expansion. That is just how it works. If you wanted to get all the reputations done and everything else done, you could technically not play World of Warcraft until the last 2 months of the expansion, and then you'd probably have an easier time doing it in a shorter condensed period of time than everyone else. The difference is they got to reap all the rewards from all of that throughout the other, 10 to 15 months that they got to actually play the game than you did, and probably had a lot more fun with all those rewards along the way. Plus, it's a carrot that they got to actually push for, where they felt like they were accomplishing something while they were doing something else, right? But the methodology for World of Warcraft has always been that as time goes on, rewards eventually get easier to get. Right? They'll hand you higher level gear later in the expansion. Right? You'll get gear that's 40 item levels or 60 item levels above the first tier of raid that existed in the expansion towards the end of expansion, just from doing world quests or doing simple activities. But that's just the nature of a catch up for the game. So I honestly think it'd be fine if the last 2 weeks of every single patch cycle, like major patch cycle, they did 50% increased reputation gain and experience gain to let players actually get something rolling towards the next patch that's coming out. I think you'd see an increase in player activity during those weeks that tend to be slower weeks. Typically, the last couple weeks before a major patch are where, as I mentioned at the top of the show, people tend to take breaks or take it a little bit easy or get a little bit of time off. And I think encouraging and incentivizing people to do more casual activities like leveling or grinding experience might be something that's a little bit more fun and a little bit more easy to do for players than, oh my goodness, we have to try and kill this boss before this next patch drops, or we're going to miss out on the achievement. I feel like that stuff shouldn't be what you're worried about in the last 2 weeks. That's just me.
Yeah. No, I think it's reasonable. And I mean, plenty of other games that, service games or games that have some kind of ongoing component, they do like bonus double XP weekends or stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
So it's sort of a thing that people are used to across the hobby, really. I just wonder if the reason why we don't see stuff more frequently is because they don't want to de-incentivize people from doing this stuff outside of those buff windows. But I don't know, man. Every time we get one of these that lasts for a while, like this one's been pretty good, or like we had Winds of Wisdom back in like 2020 in early pandemic days when it was like, hey, just level up characters for free. I mean, it was so attractive. It was hard to not take advantage of that, So I would like to see it come back on more of a predictable schedule where it's like, okay, this patch is ending. That means that we're going to get a big rep and XP buff soon.
Yeah. All right. As far as Midsummer Fire Festival goes, it's going to be wrapping up on Wednesday, so that's tomorrow. So be sure that today is kind of your last chance to grab whatever blossoms you might need towards the new Flaming Ring of Flashiness, if that's something you're looking to pick up, or you just want to do the ribbon dance to get yourself some more experience from killing monsters, or knock out a Hoon one last time. Whatever it is you're trying to do, be sure that you're getting Fire Festival stuff done today, because it's wrapping up tomorrow. And Darkmoon Faire is going to be live through this coming weekend. That's the 8th of July. So if you are someone who wants to get the benefits from Darkmoon Faire or do some Darkmoon Faire events, be sure you're taking advantage of that. Again, if you haven't done the profession stuff yet, get in there and get your knowledge, unless you're someone like Jason who's maxed out his profession and is just storing and stockpiling knowledge with no actual purpose for it yet, which is a problem I don't know if Blizzard necessarily thought about was going to happen. But yeah, that happened.
I can't imagine they did, because it's so inelegant. Every time I log into the game, it's like, you have unspent profession knowledge, and it's like, I have 70 plus points of mining knowledge that I can't put into anything.
Yeah.
I do still need plenty of blacksmithing points. Can I buy blacksmithing knowledge with mining knowledge?
Ones?
Maybe that would be okay.
I will train a blacksmith how to mine if they will train me how to blacksmith more. Yes. Yeah. I be sure you're picking up the points from Darkmoon Faire if you can, but I do hope that they actually come up with something for you all who've maxed out your professions, because that does seem very, as you said, unelegant. At least remove the alert that tells you that you have points that you
make my profession bar stop blinking at me. That's all.
Nice.
I don't care if the points bank for no reason, but just I don't want to be informed of it every time I log in.
Exactly. Okay. So we have some hot fixes for this week that are coming up. The Brackenhide Hollow got itself some nerfs to things like Gas Tooth's Gash Frenzy has now been reduced by 25%, and Decatriarch's Wrath-Eye, the Withered Eruption damage was reduced, and the Rotburst Totem cast time was increased to 7 seconds from 5. We also had some Halls of Infusion and Altharius ones, as well as Altharian's Lair. They just basically did like a whole pass, which is interesting because, as you said, we're probably 2.5 months away, 3 months away from seeing a rotation change coming in soon. November is what we're thinking?
Maybe a little bit longer than that. Maybe about 4 months, honestly.
Okay.
But we haven't really seen a lot of tuning changes to dungeons so far. Like, we've seen a little bit, but not a lot. Now, these also, I want to point out, these are data mined, and we know that they exist because we've played them, and we can like verified that they behave like this,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they haven't appeared in a hotfix blog yet because I assume that people have been out of the office for the holiday weekend and everything. So
Right.
this is stuff that was like data mined and in a Wowhead post. And like, I've done a couple of these and I can confirm some of the visual changes and stuff are definitely live in the game as we speak. But, there might be more changes that maybe haven't been observed or something, or maybe there's more changes that came in with reset that haven't been documented yet. So we'll probably get an official blog tomorrow that details all this stuff. But yeah, a lot of dungeon, especially dungeon boss retuning.
Yeah, things will be a little bit easier for you this week in Mythic Plus. I'll also add probably one of my favorite changes is on Trash in Neltharian's Lair. The Vile Shard Crawler's Acid Splash damage no longer scales with Mythic Plus level. This is one of those things that just eventually one-shots you. Like you're like, I'm doing a keystone. Oh, I got hit by acid. I'm dead. Okay.
It's just the worst. It's like, there's not a lot you can do about that. Those little things just pop, and then it can be hard to avoid like taking a tick.
Yeah. So it's the case of, I love seeing things get uncoupled from Mythic Plus base scaling, because you do hit that point where it's like, okay, this is just scaled to a one-shot. And this isn't fun because it's a trash mechanic and it's not like really well telegraphed as far as what I'm supposed to be able to dodge or avoid or have happen, as you said before, a tick gets in. If that one tick one-shots you, it's really not that much fun. But yeah, we talked about this being the last week before the patch. The patch is the Fractures in Time content update that's going to be happening on July 11th. Obviously, there's a bunch of stuff coming out with it. We talked about a whole bunch of it last week, but we'll remind you that the new Evoker Specialization Augmentation that is going to be coming out. That is the Evoker spec that buffs other classes around them while dealing damage. So we'll have to see just how this plays out for folks. I know there's going to be a lot of people really excited to dive into this. And I'm curious as to what the ripple effects will be of putting a class like this into the game. I certainly will say that every single team will have at least one of these inside of their raid team. You'll probably want at least one, if not three, because you can have one in different groups. So you'll probably want one inside of your DPS groups that you have inside of your raid. So it'd be 2 or 3 of these, I'd expect, in most raid teams. We'll see what ends up happening with it. But I don't know. The augmentation thing to me just feels like a time bomb of salt that could potentially happen for raid teams. Yeah. So I'm a little nervous about it, I guess, is where I'm getting at with this. But I'm excited that there's a new spec for Evokers. I just wish it was a tanking one. That's what I wanted.
I like the idea of it. I like the flavor of it. I like the idea of trying to carve a different niche inside of World of Warcraft and in the combat landscape. And
it's really...
Okay. I was going to say, maybe like if augmentation works out, maybe we see other specs that kind of have a bent like that, where, you're supporting, your teammates with buffs or whatever. But it's, I guess there's the other side of the coin where like maybe everybody just likes it because everybody catches enough of the augmentation buffs over the course of combat that it kind of evens out. So it's like, it's better than PI that just goes on the person that's going to mathematically make the best use of PI, and then everybody's mad because that person only did so good because they got PI'd the whole time. And
go ahead, keep going.
If it can change people's perception of like we're a team working together to defeat these challenges versus like I need to do the most damage in here and then I need my number to turn orange on Warcraft logs and then I don't really care what else happens. Like that would be good. Is that too optimistic? Maybe. Like the whole conversation around PI has been so fraught for years, and it like this is that concept just on a larger scale. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think it was worth a shot. I guess there is some like miscommunication about it. I feel like because people hear the Cliff Notes version of it or like the elevator pitch. It's like, and they go, "Oh, it's a bard." Cool. And it's like, but it's not though. It's still a DPS spec in World of Warcraft, right? Like you're not a healer.
Nope.
You're not like a buff spec. Like your abilities buff your allies, but like you are doing a DPS rotation in order to provide said buffs. I have people like on my raid team that as recently as like Saturday didn't realize that it was just a pure DPS. It's not a healing spec. It's not some other category. It is a DPS spec. you will be DPSing and providing stat buffs to those around you via your DPS rotation. So if you have not really looked into it too much and you just kind of caught wind of like, oh, it's a support spec, it's like a bard. It's okay, kind of like you could, if you squint, but like you're still going to be doing a DPS rotation, right? Like your job is to cast spells at the boss, and then you also buff your friends.
Think about Specialist and Heroes of the Storm is the closest you probably have reference-wise inside another game to something like this. The closest thing in World of Warcraft that we've ever seen to this is Shadow Priest a la Burning Crusade, where there were mana batteries that essentially you put them into a group with your caster DPS, and then they would just generate mana to all your caster DPS so they could do more damage. And they do this by essentially channeling Mind Flay on the boss over and over and over and over again, which was the most boring gameplay style for a priest that we've seen. However, as you mentioned, they're killing the bosses because of it. So, you know, if you got to be the mana battery, then that is what it is, and everyone loves you for it. I love your optimism about what could potentially happen with this, albeit I feel like there might be a little bit naive. I have one correction to make. People want pink numbers, Jason, on Warcraft logs. They don't want orange ones. Ones
they'll settle for orange ones.
Some people will, but the pink ones are the ones everyone's really after.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't know that. I'm trying to see the glass half full, but I don't think that's the way it's going to go. Just for the record, like,
I hear you.
I think there's a path at the other side where people go, oh wait, actually this feels really cool and it's fun, but I don't think that's what's going to happen, at least at the jump.
Yeah, you have to remember who the vocal minority is, right? Who is out there, and the vocal minority is going to be the ones who already complain about, you know, the priest buffs that we have going on. So, yeah, we're going to see how augmentation happens, and it'll be interesting to see how the community reacts to it. It's why I say you'll probably see 2 or 3 of these inside most groups, because I think they'll have at least 2 groups of just solid DPS that have one of these sit, and it'll probably be a melee one and a ranged one, and they will sit in that group and buff that group. And I'm sure there'll be people who try and work out ways, which has already been, you know, adjusted, where you cannot change people's groups in combat, but people try to work out ways to like make that happen, to get them close enough to things. It's unfortunate for a spec like this because it needs to really be something that only affects a couple of people, because otherwise it's just such a minuscule buff that you don't notice it, right? You want something like this to feel powerful. You want it to be like when you were standing next to a player against the, you know, Torgru or whatever the thing was, the first boss of Sylvanas' raid, where essentially you had to stand next to the closest person to someone, so you had a beam go to you so you could do more damage because it was all proximity based. You want it to be something where players get excited because they've managed to get the buff, and now they got the buff, they're doing even more damage, and that makes all their numbers go up higher, and it's exciting. Because if it affected the whole raid, it would be like, increase everyone's haste by 3%. And you'd be like, wow, this is cool that I'm doing this, but this could just be like, you know, essentially a buff that's just cast on the raid. Like, you know, Arcane Intellect, essentially, right? That you could just give to augmentation, and they just cast it and hits everyone. So they need to make it affect a smaller portion of people so that it can be a more powerful thing, so it feels better. I just feel like these things are dangerous to play with as far as the meta goes and the player base goes. So
yeah, I mean, for sure. In terms of feels, it's very treacherous. One thing I do like about it conceptually is, like, if you play Devastation Evoker right now, right, and you're not like a pumper, you're not like a super min-maxer, you're just kind of doing your thing and you do okay, but you could probably be doing better, then augmentation might be a great fit for you, because now you're just kind of helping the group more, right? Like, you can still do your thing. You're still not like really pumping, but you make up for it by doing mechanics really well or something, and then you're like tossing out buffs to the people that are pumping. And I mean, I think there are plenty of people that fall in that category where they're like, I'm never going to be a DPS superstar, but I like playing the spec or whatever. You know, I like having that role in the group. So I try to make up for it with handling mechanics, calling stuff out, whatever. I mean, I have people like that in my group. You know, they're never going to be top of the meters, but they contribute to the group a lot. Buffing the pumpers on their way over to do the mechanic would be really nice. So I can see it. It's just a matter of, to the people that are like combing logs and rating parses and getting really upset about that, and how these buffs go out on certain people and they're not benefiting from the buffs the way they think they should be. Like, does that dominate the conversation around the entire combat gameplay? And I guess if it does, then how much does Blizzard actually care about that? Those are two separate questions at a certain point. I feel like sometimes Blizzard really cares about that, and they do stuff to the game to minimize those types of conversations. And I don't know if that's really good for everybody. Like, having a spec that makes everybody else or like a bunch of other people in the group do more damage, when you think about it, is really good for like median skill level players, right? Like, they're the ones who are going to benefit from it the most. So, but it's a philosophy shift, and it's a mindset shift for players.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I also want to know how tuning is going to work inside raids, because you are going to have those top end teams that have a boss encounter where they're able to push their damage so incredibly high by rolling, augmentation, that they'll end up breaking certain boss fights, I'm sure, in some ways. But we'll have to find out and see what ends up happening with it. There's going to be specs where when you're balancing out rogues, and it's a particular rogue spec, where, they essentially aren't doing so much ridiculous burst inside this window because of the buffs that they're getting, and how those buffs are affecting them. Like, it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. I don't know. I'm here for. I got my popcorn. I'm ready. I'm here for the drama that might take place. We'll have to see. All right, preserve the timeline with Dawn of the Infinite Mega Dungeon. This is the new Mega Dungeon that's coming out. It's 8 bosses. You get powerful gear and dragon riding customizations and a whole bunch of other stuff that they are going to have for players to check out. This is all kicking off next week, so there'll be a lot of people running the Mega Dungeon. I think a lot of people are going to have fun with this thing for the first 3 weeks, 4 weeks that it's out. Typically, the interest dies off pretty quickly after that, unless there's some really powerful, repeatable reward, because normal Mythic Plus rewards tend to be better than those that come from the Mega Dungeon. So we'll have to see how that lasts and looks, and if there's a way to keep it kind of alive beyond that 4-week point until we actually hit the point where it becomes 2 Mythic Plus dungeons later on in the expansion, which is obviously much more exciting to sort of be involved in. And it'll be a little weird with the rotating, because it means we could end up with a week where you have one wing of, or a season where you have one wing of the Mega Dungeon and not the other wing, which would also be strange to see.
Oh, that'd be really weird, right? If they ever did anything like that.
Do that.
I never really thought of that, but yeah. Cool thing about this is no gap week, right? Because I think when Tazavesh came out, it didn't launch the week that patch came out, I don't think.
Yeah, there was a gap. Yeah.
So as far as we know, there's no gap week. Like, I haven't seen anything that says, Dawn of the Infinite opens July 18th or something like that. Like, I think we could play this next week, which is awesome. So, yeah, looking forward to getting in there. I don't know that much about, like, the top-end cosmetic rewards or whatever, like the chase kind of rewards. So I have gotten those from the other Mega Dungeons, and I imagine that I'll shoot for it in here as well. I just don't know what it entails. Like, Karazhan was pretty hard. You had to run that dungeon really fast, and you had to like kill Nightbane in it's like a certain amount of time or something. I forget. It was like sort of a puzzle you had to solve, and it was timed. Like in terms of how fast you got through the dungeon, you had to interact with these items, and then that would unlock the mount. Mechagon was obviously like a real challenge, because you had to get through the whole thing, activating all the hard modes or whatever, and have nobody die. So that took a lot of practice and coordination. And then Tazavesh was easy. It was like you just had to have gone through the quest line where you get the fake credentials, and then you basically do it once on normal mode, and then you just do it on hard mode. And it was harder, but like as long as you do it, then everybody got the item. It wasn't even like you were passing the mount around or whatever. So I don't really want to grind out a Mega Dungeon. Like, the Mechagon model was probably a bit too much for me. Like, I mean, we did it all, but like having to do it 5 weeks in a row or whatever it was to toss the mounts out, like do it or was that how it went? Maybe not. Maybe everybody got the mount if you did it, but like you had to do it perfectly. Was it Nightbane that you had to trade around or whatever?
Nightbane you had to trade around. Mechagon, everyone did get it if you did it right. But there was also another reward that would have to get traded as well at the end of it. So there was 2 different things.
Right, that's what it was.
There was a mount that was guaranteed to drop, which one dropped of that could be traded out. But everyone got another mount reward just for actually completing the actual dungeon. Was part of it too. So, and there was other unlocks too. There was like I can't remember what the other unlock was character power wise that happened with it, but it freed up something else like the Valor system kind of concept kind of thing too for doing it, I thought, all the way through once. But yeah, it was definitely a lot more to grind. And like I said, that was my first experience with hiring a band of mercenaries for gold to carry my character through something. Was I literally was fully geared and was just like, you know what, I just don't want to worry about it. So I'm going to get a group of people who, you know, do this regularly. And when I mentioned to my guild that I was doing this, they're like, dude, we'll do it. Like, we'll just get the people together, whatever. I'm like, look, I just want it done. I'm just going to do it now. We're just going to figure this out. And it ended up being a really weird experience because the first group I went in with sucked. And so they had to then like pull in a different group of people to help me through doing it, which was very weird.
Was that in the Gallywix days where?
Yes, it was that kind of stuff, whatever that was. It was a very interesting system that existed then. And all those systems primarily existed because you couldn't move gold from server to server. So they had to have these outside of game systems that players created to be able to move gold around a whole bunch. Which ended up being like all sorts of other, you know, weird money schemes that existed.
Right. You start going into gold laundering.
Yeah, it's just a very strange thing going on with that. But which Blizzard put a stop to, and obviously I haven't done any of that since. But it was one of those interesting experiences just to sort of see what it was like. And man, oh man, I'm glad I got that achievement done. I'm glad I got the rewards done because I really, really wanted them. So that made me very happy. But it is definitely something that I don't think they need to do again. I also don't think they need to do a Mechagon Island thing again that I spent 3 months getting all of the achievements for so I could get the gold wheel that I can ride around on that I'm very proud of having now.
Right. Yeah. Man, that meta was a lot.
Oh my God.
I guess like for the Mega Dungeon, I was just like a happy medium between. I think Tazavesh was a bit too easy to like get the, you know, top end cosmetic. It's like I could have gotten a little bit more in the Mythic Zero Tazavesh. I feel like I wouldn't have minded that, but I feel like, you know, Mechagon was maybe that was too over the top. Like it was such a high bar that you had to do so consistently. You know, somewhere in between. I don't know what it would be. I'm not a game designer. I'm an entitled player. I just ask for things and I want them to be delivered to me. So
yeah,
it could be like more involved than Tazavesh, but not as involved as Mechagon, then that would be awesome.
And that's, again, to clarify, that's to get the reward you wanted, right? Like Mechagon was too high a bar. It was a great dungeon. It was too high a bar to get the reward you wanted of the no deaths thing, right? Like that was just it was just too high a bar. So when it comes down to what they're doing with this, I don't expect them to do anything like Mechagon again. As a dungeon, Mechagon was great when it actually was just a dungeon that you were just running with buddies and having a good time. And both Tazavesh and Mechagon were great Mythic Plus dungeons. Tazavesh was probably my favorite Mythic Plus dungeon of Shadowlands. Mm-hmm. Like those wings were both great really wings. Good in
season 4. Oh my God, even recently, yeah.
It was fantastic. So I would certainly say that I'm looking forward to what this is going to look like in Mythic Plus when it actually rolls around and people start doing it much more regularly, because I do think this is like a 3-week, 4-week, then you sort of see everyone drop off from running it kind of dungeon that happens with these big mega dungeons that they do. Okay, unraveling the time streams. The time streams have become increasingly more unstable with recent events. So as these boundaries weaken, these minions pour out from different timelines all over the Isle. You gotta push them back. This encroaching chaos that's taking place, and you're going to be heading over to Aeon's Fringe for a new quest, and that'll basically walk you through what's going on with these invading forces from different timelines. I hope that there is a bizarro Hogger timeline where Hoggers from all sorts of different timelines come pouring out, and you have like steampunk Hoggers and, you know, mech Hoggers and
across the Hoggerverse.
The Hoggerverse, yes. I'm good with across the Hoggerverse being a thing that happens with one of these. I'd be fine with it.
That would be cool. Yeah. I don't know anything about this, but I have like perused some, you know, data mining and PTR previews like Wowhead has done. But I haven't clicked through them. I just come across my feed. It seems like there's a lot of cool callbacks to, you know, other parts of the game and like weird alternate reality twists on the stuff that you'll be doing. So that seems cool. I like that element of it. I think this is the perfect way to play with it, and like kind of low stakes content and a patch that's sort of focused on Nozdormu and the time ways and all that kind of stuff. Like, why not? Why not have fun with it? You know, mash some stuff together, and you know, it's not like this dictates the future of the game or the narrative. It's just an event to go do and have fun with.
You could fight the Hogger Zord. That's a giant Hogger that breaks apart into smaller Hoggers that all combine back together.
Like mecha Hoggers. Yeah.
Let's let's get into this. You have a Hogger driving a big Hogger suit inside like an actual like
make this an entire expansion at this point. That's the final raid of the Hogger expansion. It's like a Hogger Voltron, and you like climb in the foot, and then you like ascend the thing up to the final boss. Yeah.
Oh man! All right. Anyways, I gotta throw fun things in there every now and then. Level up your warlocks and your pets. They got new pet customization for warlocks. Basically, your warlocks can go out, get a quest. That'll let them start collecting things and grinding things towards actually getting customizational stuff for your pets, which is awesome. They look really wicked. We talked about them a bunch last week. Warlocks definitely be happy and hop on board on that. I'm sure there's some really cool stuff. Just taking your pet to a barber shop to get a haircut can be a pretty cool thing to be able to do, apparently. So yeah, definitely check that out. There's also the Whelp Daycare, which is what Jason's desperate for. He needs this in his life. The Ruby Life Run.
Best feature, yeah.
It's got eggs that need to be taken care of and hatch into little dragon whelps. These dragon whelps will eventually become non-combat pets if you work on them long enough. But as a reward for helping them, you also get combat pets, which are a totally different variety of creature, which is also a very cool thing to check out. And there's there's I think a mount eventually reward, so it's pretty cool. It's definitely worth checking out. Doing the Whelp Daycare, it's going to be a fun thing for everyone to participate in. Okay, get ready to ride the Kalimdor Cup. This is actually an event that's being announced. This is more than a month in advance, which is amazing that people can actually prepare and be ready for this. Rediscover Kalimdor skies with a new dragon riding racing event arriving to Azeroth. And it's going to be running from the 15th to the 28th of August. It's going to be 16 races across Kalimdor in normal, advanced, and reversed variations to earn riders of Azeroth badges to exchange for rewards from Mesa. So here's the coolest thing about this, right? It means that devs have been sitting around going, we want to put dragon riding inside of Kalimdor and inside of Eastern Kingdoms at some point. What's the best way to like try and see how this is going to look and work and happen? Well, let's do races. So they're going to do an event that's going to run for, essentially almost 2 weeks. And it's going to be something that lets players do a particular course, a particular path around Kalimdor to be able to, check out all the cool zones that are there. I expect there'll be a Desolus one, and there'll be one over Orgrimmar, and there'll be, I'd love to see one over Orgrimmar for Alliance players zipping along of Orgrimmar, and just see what happens inside the races. I think these would be really cool things to check out. I'm looking forward to it. I've really been itching to be able to do dragon riding in the old kingdoms, basically. So I love that this is like the taste of it. This is their test to see how it works for players and if anything's really broken. And this is a great way to beta test this with an event. So I'm happy to see this coming.
Yeah, it's cool. I don't know what kind of rewards are available from the badges. I haven't really looked into it. I'm sort of in a phase where I just wait for the stuff to go live and then I get into it. Not that I really need to be surprised, but I kind of just like that better. So I don't know. I assume you get like customizations and stuff from this, but like it was pretty obvious, I think, the minute we got to try dragon riding in Dragonflight Alpha, that it was like, all right, we just need this. Like, This is what we need to be doing. And obviously there's a lot of back end stuff they need to do to retrofit the feature onto the older zone. So yeah, it's cool to get a little sample of it, and I'll probably give them a lot of good data. I'll bet you on August 15th, a lot of people are going to be getting DC'd when they start doing Kalimdor Cup races. Probably. But maybe by like the 17th, it'll be fewer people.
I have an idea for these rewards.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say, when I first started playing Alpha, I was getting DC'd dragon riding constantly in Dragon Isles, and I was like, this isn't going to work if I just keep getting DC'd. So that's my big concern there with the older zones.
To address that, the DC primarily comes from your character moving faster than the game likes your character to move, which is also typically what happens when people blink or do things like that. Is you've achieved a speed where the game goes, no, you're not supposed to do that.
You're map hacking. Get off my server.
Exactly. What I was thinking for rewards, I want to say this, is I want a dragon riding wyvern and a dragon riding griffin. That's what I want for the rewards. So you
That'd be cool. That'd be really cool. Yeah.
I think those would be wicked to get. They'd be obviously redone in the newer models, so I think those could be pretty wicked to see. So that's what I want from it, and we'll have to see if that's something we get. Because yeah, dragon riding in Kalimdor and stuff is going to be a lot of fun. Okay, man, oh man, trading post rewards. So yes, if you hadn't realized, it is now July, which means we're in a new month, which means the trading post has updated, so you can go and collect your tokens and whatnot for effort, and you can also spend them on really good additional rewards. So we have the Spectral Tiger's Cub. This is probably a very hot ticket, very controversial item, because this is something that has been sold for real money from the trading card game for a very long time. So the Spectral Tiger Cub is available for 750 traders tokens. Tyrael's Charger, if it's something you did not get from the event that was going on with the Goblin, when the Goblin had his little bag was running around, or you didn't get way back in the day from Cataclysm when they made everyone, they offered everyone a year of World of Warcraft subscription for Diablo 3 for free. It was a promotion back then. That's 900 traders tokens. You can get that. There's also a Fell Crystal Scorpion, Flashy Finery, there's a Basher, the Primeval Basher, a Polished Short Sword, Silvered War Cloak. We got Vagabond's Violet Threads, as well as Trappings, and Fists of Polar Fury, a Sinister Fellstaff, Mephisto's Razor. Sorry, I say Mephisto's because I was thinking Diablo. It's Mephistroth's Razor, and the Helm of the Fierce, and the Filigreed Lion's Maw, as well as the Aldori War Mace. Man, there's tons of stuff this time around. There's also a Antoran Fellspire. This is a wicked staff, by the way, if you haven't seen this thing. And of course, there's Conquest, which is a two-handed sword, and an ensemble that's the Sylvan Stalker's Leather. So the bonus reward being a Grotto Netherwing mount. Man, Netherwing mounts, God, Burning Crusade flashback. This is a remodeled Netherwing mount. They look awesome. It's certainly worth putting the effort in this month to try and get this thing, because man, Netherwing mounts were some of my favorite mounts back in the day because of this like phosphorescent kind of glow that they always had about them, and this is a newly modeled one, so it has that same glow. It's got wicked looking horns, and yeah, you get to ride around on it, so certainly worth putting the effort into picking up. So yeah, I hope people really enjoy their rewards for this month, because they're pretty wicked. Are you going to get the shield, this Filigreed Lion's Maw shield?
I already have it, because this is actually this is a relist. It was up before, and it's pretty cheap at 250 tender. So they're already bringing some stuff back in case you missed it, which is cool.
Yep.
I bought the Spectral Tiger Cub because it looks like a Night Saber, basically like a ghost. So I got to have that Night Elf for life. I kind of love how trolly it is that Tyrael's Charger's on here.
Yep.
Right? Because they ran that Diablo event, and it was like every single day you have a chance to get Tyrael's Charger, but realistically you're probably not going to. And then like a month later they put it on here. And 900 is a lot, but it's not too bad.
It shines at the benefit of the system, right? Like that's what it comes down to, is that the system is something that's in place of, oh, hey, you didn't get this limited time event thing that you wanted to get. Well, it might make its way into the rotation here where you can get it that way, right? Which I like.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like pretty much anything is on the table for trading posts, which is cool. New stuff, old stuff, weird stuff. Tyrael's Charger it's a funny case because I don't really think it's a very nice mount. I didn't even like it when it came out. It's animated funny. The wings just look funny to me, and they never made them look any different. And so, I know people who missed out on that era of the game and didn't have it and were like, oh, I really want Tyrael's Charger. And I'm like, why? And I mounted. I'm like, look at this thing. Like, if you like it, fine. Like, there's no accounting for taste. But I just like when I got it in 2011 or whenever that was, I was expecting something a little bit different.
I was just thrilled that I got Diablo 3 for free. That's what it was for me, of like, if I just commit to subbing for a year, you're going to give me the new Diablo game that's coming out? Like, right. Yeah,
like at that point,
in.
Yeah, it's like I'm subbing to WoW regardless, right? So whatever. I will say the bonus reward is amazing. This is the best bonus reward they've done by a mile so far. I mean, a new dragon riding mount, and it's a Netherwing. Like,
I know.
I never even would have perceived such a thing like coming from this system, it's a separate, it's not like a transformation for an existing one. It's a new mount, which means potentially we'll see customizations added for it and stuff somewhere, or some other stuff to do with it. I don't know. It could be possibly down the line. How cool would that be if they put stuff on the trading post? It was like customizations for other stuff that you got from the trading post. That could be cool. Mm-hmm. But I love the way this thing looks. I have not done a lot in the last couple of days. I have a few points into the track this month. I mean, I'll certainly get it. You get plenty of progress just from doing weekly activities. Yeah. But yeah, really looking forward to that. This is the first one that I've been like, I need to get this done as soon as possible because I want to ride around on this thing. It's Dragonflight, so doing a mount that's like a turtle. Okay, it's cool. The turtle mount was awesome looking, but I don't ride it because I need to be dragon riding around the Dragon Isles. Yeah. It is cool getting the extra trader's tender and having the extra stuff listed on the store. Like I like that concept, like especially because it's summertime, right? Which tends to be a more dead time for the game. People are busy. They're on summer vacation, whatever. They're just checked out of the game because they're doing other stuff, summertime kind of activity or whatever. So for people that are playing, it's a cool bonus. You get some extra cosmetics and, maybe step outside of your routine and your comfort zone a little bit to get some progress on the reward track. I don't know. There's some kind of goofy stuff in there this month because there's a couple holidays and micro holidays and stuff so you can get points from doing that. I love it. Yeah. I never thought that they would do like an entirely new dragon riding mount from the trading post. Like, nah, I never would have seen that coming.
I agree entirely. It's definitely worth putting the effort into getting. If you are someone who has Prime Gaming, if you're someone who has Amazon Prime and you're on Twitch and whatnot, you can also get a reward this month, which is the Swift Shore Strider mount. It started up on June 22nd, and just from watching WoW streams that are participating, you can get yourself this mount up until July 20th. So be sure you're claiming your Shore Strider if you're watching someone stream and trying to get the drops done and all that for the period of time that you're watching it for. BlizzCon tickets. This is the thing I mentioned at the top of the show. I'll mention again now. BlizzCon officially happening November 3rd to 4th. Not a huge surprise there. That's when BlizzCon typically happens. We've been waiting for ticket information. Ticket information finally came through. It's going to be taking place Saturday, July 8th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. That's 1 p.m. Eastern time. And Saturday, July 22nd at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. You'll be able to purchase tickets for the convention during that window. Obviously, it's first come, first serve. And you can only buy 2 tickets per transaction this year around as opposed to 4. It used to be 4 a while back. It's a wonderful event that I very much have always enjoyed going to. BlizzCon, they have increased ticket prices massively, as opposed to $199 that they used to be for general admission. It's now $299, and the Portal Pass, which was I think $6.99 or $5.99, I think it might have been $5.99 last year, is now $7.99. So what you get for these tickets, the general admission, is access to all the halls. You get early access to the BlizzCon store on Thursday, which means the online store where they sell stuff with all of the BlizzCon goodies. There'll obviously be some things announcement-wise that they just throw up as question marks that you can't buy until the convention actually announces them on Friday. But everything else you'll get access to before the masses do online, which is a nice thing. It's a perk if you're looking for that to try and buy stuff before they all sell out. You get exclusive BlizzCon in-game goodies. So obviously, this you'll probably also get with the digital pass that they're going to put out later on as those in-game goodies. That you get, as well as the official BlizzCon backpack. So there's a backpack. They typically do a bag of some kind. We've had like 2 different shoulder bags. We've had backpacks before. So this is the new backpack for this year. The difference between the general admission and the Portal Pass, what you're getting for your $400 additional US is exclusive Portal Pass lounge access. So basically it's a private viewing area with private concessions. There'll be gameplay experiences. There's probably going to be demo machines up there for the games that you can actually try out. There's a concierge service, which I don't really know necessarily what that looks like, as well as the Blizzard employees meet and greet. So basically employees, when they are not doing panels, potentially can come by if they want to hang out inside of the Portal Pass Lounge. Typically, from what we know in past years, is employees will sort of register for a time where they're going to be hanging out there. You don't necessarily know when someone's going to be there. There'll be some times where you actually know, like, Ian's going to be stopping by between these hours kind of idea, but typically you don't. It's just if you happen to be inside the Portal Pass Lounge and a dev happens to walk in, then great. You can, go up and have a conversation with them and hang out with them. You also get a separate registration line, which means it'll be faster on Thursday getting through to actually get your badge itself. The registration lines have been all over the place as far as sometimes they're underneath the convention center. We've had them inside hotels before, where they're in the basements of the hotels that are nearby the convention. So we'll see what actually is happening with registration. A separate security line, which is probably one of the largest benefits. The Portal Pass Lounge is nice, but the security line will get you into the convention faster, which means you can essentially come and go from the convention easier throughout the day. If you want to not eat from the vendors inside of the convention center itself and eat from the massively amazing food trucks that all park outside of the convention center, you can go out during lunchtime, get yourself some food, and get back in without waiting in a huge line to get back in. And also you get early convention entry on Friday and Saturday just to the lounge. So basically you can get in early and head up to your Portal Pass lounge on Friday and Saturday before the actual convention center opens for the day to everyone else. And you'll just get, taken up to the lounge area, hang out there, talk with people before the convention starts. I assume this is probably part of the concierge support, which is probably like, hey, there's some food and snacks in case you want something in the morning. They'll probably have something there that are snacks for Portal Pass vendors. So yeah, it's overall, it is cost prohibitive. Like, I'm putting that out there. The Portal Pass for me would be $1,100. The general admission is almost $500 for me because it's all US prices and I'm Canadian. So these are very expensive, and obviously flying into Anaheim for most people is also expensive, and the hotels around the place are, somewhere between $300 and $500 or higher a night. So it is a very expensive convention to go to, and I understand that not everyone can do it, so I'm sure there'll be an online pass option that's available. Jason and I are, of course, hoping to get media again this year, where we're able to actually get you guys some interviews and real opinionated recordings that we can do while we're down there from our firsthand experiences, which I think could be great. So we're hoping that comes through for us, but overall, excited to see BlizzCon happening again. I'm really curious what the convention is going to look like. There's a couple other little things to add about how this event's going to work. But Jason, what are you feeling so far, just off of the ticket prices and whatnot that's there?
Well, it's it's a different world in 2019, man.
Yep.
A lot has changed, obviously, with everything since the last time we had a BlizzCon. I feel like the company is in a much different place. The customer relationship to the company is in a much different place. There's some weird stuff in here, but it doesn't necessarily make me go, oh, I don't want to go, I guess. I'm curious as to what it's going to be like, because it's definitely going to be different. I mean,
yep.
They mentioned at the top that they want to have more of an immersive and experiential BlizzCon than they've done in the past. And they want to have spaces and installations where people are hanging out and sort of connecting with each other through these game universes, which sounds cool.
I mean, they've done something like that with they had the Darkmoon Fair, they had the Diablo Tavern, those sorts of spaces.
So maybe extrapolating that out across the entire convention could be really cool. I mean, yeah. I think there have been years where the Darkmoon Fair was the best part of the whole show because it'd have kind of intimate panel discussions and other kind of presentations that were really fun.
They had games with rewards, you could gamble basically inside games that were there and play carnival games. There was neat stuff they could do there.
Yeah, so I mean, if it's sort of that vibe across the whole convention space, that could be really cool. I think there's a lot of potential there, and it seems like a lot of the show is going to hinge on whether or not that's cool. The price increase is pretty substantial, but to me, it's also kind of expected. Everything costs more than it did in 2019. I'm sure everybody that Blizzard has to deal with to get the show up and running is charging them more for everything that they need from them. And so that changes the calculus, and they got to charge more money up front. I think it's weird that they've cut. It was always you could buy 4 tickets per transaction for many, many years, and they cut it down to 2. And I'm not sure what that really signifies. I mean, I guess you'll be able to have more ticket buyers, right? Because before, practice was get in the queue. All right, no matter what, you're buying 4 tickets because you will sell whatever extras you have. Yeah. So if you've made it through the queue, then your duty to everyone is to buy 4 tickets to buy the max.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be 2 this time, which is, I don't know. That's a bit weird. I think it's cool that they are doing the virtual ticket, but that's not the live streams are not going to be locked behind the virtual ticket purchase.
Yeah, they're free.
Yeah, that's awesome. The virtual ticket will only be if you want the in-game goodies and you want early access to the merch store and they'll probably throw in some other perks. But if you just want to watch the panels and see like presumably the new WoW expansion announcement and stuff about probably like future Dragonflight patches, you want to see Diablo stuff and the plans for, you know, the ongoing support for D4, Hearthstone, you know, I'm sure we'll have like whatever the December expansion for Hearthstone is will be announced at the show, right? Like whatever's coming out in a couple of weeks will be announced there. And maybe some new games. I mean, you know, Arclight Rumble still isn't out. Its beta phase just ended a couple weeks ago. So that's a little mobile game, like a Clash of Clans like that I really enjoyed over the last couple weeks. So I was sad to see the beta go. Maybe we'll see some more info about that. We have the unannounced survival game that we know they've been working on for a couple years with some pretty heavy hitters that are, you know, on that project. So it'd be cool to maybe see the debut of that. Who knows? Like, there is a lot of, finally, I feel like there's a lot of forward momentum with the games, you know, where for a couple years it felt sort of subdued, but, you know, with WoW on a better trajectory and Diablo 4 finally like out the door, it seems like maybe the floodgates might be opened up a bit more in terms of some info on stuff in development. So that could be really cool.
Yeah. So let's talk about the weird thing here, right? Which is opening ceremony seating, as well as the panels and the community night are all going to be taking place inside the BlizzCon arena. And they're all going to be essentially a random draw for who gets to sit where and who actually gets into the arena space. So they're basically saying, all right, there's no longer a first come, first serve. You get in line at 7 a.m. to get into BlizzCon, or 6 a.m., or you're one of those people who like camps out overnight so that you can get a really good seat at opening ceremonies that kicks off at 11, which means you essentially are willing to wait 7 hours to make sure you get a good seat, at least kind of idea, to be able to actually watch the opening ceremonies. That's no longer a thing. It is now that you are essentially going to know whether or not you're getting into it or not ahead of time, and you essentially show up and get to either go into the arena and see everything, or you don't, as far as the random draw system goes. So this is a big shift. It's a big change. I think there's some people who are going to be very upset about this because they really want to guarantee themselves that space. So they're willing to, you know, essentially sacrifice their evening and their sleep and their bodies to a certain degree to make sure that they get that really good seat for the opening ceremonies, or that they just want to be able to go and watch that panel. But now it's a random draw system for an arena space. If it is in fact the BlizzCon arena, that's that arena space where all the StarCraft stuff took place last time we were there. It's a much smaller space. I think it only seats like 10,000 or 8,000 people or something.
I think it's like 5,000.
It might be 5.
I don't know. I think it's somewhere in that range. It's definitely. I don't think it's anywhere near 10,000. No.
Yeah. So if it is in fact that space, then, you know, it is going to be very few people who actually get into it based off the overall convention, depending on the size of the convention. Again, we don't know the numbers of this. Like previous years, it's been like 23,000 or 26,000 people that have gone to BlizzCon. We don't know if they're even renting out the entire convention center. It could be that they are just doing the arena space and then 2 of the other halls. They might not be getting all 4 halls plus the arena space like they have in previous years. So without knowing the schedule and the layout, we just know that they say that, you know, the opening ceremonies will be able to be watched in every hall. And we're like, well, but is that probably every hall that they're renting? Not necessarily every hall inside the space. We'll have to wait and see when we get more details about all of that kind of stuff. What they typically do is release a schedule. The schedule has a map of the entire facility. Once we see that map, we'll be able to know for sure what all they're actually pulling together for it. So, yeah, this is a big shift, Jason, with the randomly assigned seating for people. And I think there'll be some people who are like, ooh, I get to relax because I now know ahead of time whether or not I'm getting to the opening ceremonies. And there'll be some people who are like, dude, I want to put in the effort to be able to guarantee a spot. Why can't I do that?
It's weird. It's weird. I mean, it seems like panel content is just going to be overall a much smaller part of the presentation. It kind of has to be because they're only going to be running one at a time. If they're all running in the arena, then you can only run one at a time because there's only one arena and there's only one stage on it. So, whereas in the past, you'd normally have a couple panels running at once and stuff like that. You know, you'd have like at least 2 stages running and you'd have 2 panels at the same time. So this leads me to believe there's going to be a lot less panel content overall. I mean, I remember in some years they did a thing where they would have, each different game their part of the opening ceremony would be at a different stage. So we would go to, the Hearthstone stage, and then the Hearthstone team would like do their part of the opening ceremonies, and then they'd go to the arena and the Overwatch team would do their thing, and then they'd go back to the main stage. Like, that was okay. I don't know.
I didn't mind that. I thought that was good.
Yeah. I mean, there were some tech hurdles that year with the Hearthstone stage specifically, I think. But like overall, I think the format worked okay. So like, I guess this would be kind of like that. I don't know. I mean, I think it would definitely cut down on that insane crush of like people potentially getting trampled on their way into the main hall for opening ceremonies, which is probably a good thing. And ultimately way more people are going to see the presentation online and on VODs and after the fact for a while to come than are going to be in the whatever the building is anyway.
I don't like that there's a chance that you fork out, or I fork out $500 for a ticket to get into this, right? And I don't know what panels or ceremonies I can attend, right? So I'm saying, yep, I'm willing to buy a ticket to go to this convention and potentially have to watch the entire convention on screens as opposed to being able to be in the space with them. Like that, there's a chance that happens, right?
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's weird. I mean, it's a totally different concept for running the show. I mean, I guess if the individual halls are really cool and really like decked out spaces and have a lot of atmosphere, then it might not be so bad, I guess. Like if you're not in the arena, like maybe it's still cool. Like I'm willing to, let that be a possibility. I don't think there's anything particularly magical about sitting in a giant hall with every attendee of the convention and you're watching a monitor anyway, probably, unless you're in the first like 5 rows, right? Like, because I've been there. And I'm not sure how much being in the hall where, Jeff Kaplan was standing really enhanced the experience of the presentation very much, but I do understand sort of the emotional impact of that. I guess it's just a bit different. I mean, you hopefully like Metzen is emceeing BlizzCon this year. Wouldn't that be nice? I don't know if he would want to do that, but like he was the voice and face of BlizzCon for so many years, and he's back with the company now, so that would be cool, and that might make people feel a certain way if they're not in the arena for Metzen being on stage. But I mean, what I can glean from this is the plan for how the show is going to be this year is a lot different than the previous years as we knew the show, and that is not a bad thing on its face, but it depends. I think there's an opportunity to do some cool stuff here, and there's the possibility that the show just ends up feeling dinky and kind of disconnected compared to previous years. So I guess we'll see. My initial thought is like, first of all, I think considering the company's overall profile and sort of what has happened to its reputation over the last few years is going to just naturally mean that fewer people are really interested in giving them an exorbitant amount of money for an event like this. Like just to be frank, like I think the overall audience for BlizzCon is significantly diminished from where it was in 2019, regardless of the products. And maybe that's not true, but that's the way I feel about it. And I feel like what they're telling me is to expect to be hanging out on the show floor more and checking stuff out. And maybe there's like little demos of, like art demos or, tech demos or something, or, maybe there's like a bunch of art installations and original art and stuff. Maybe maybe more the experience is shifting towards hanging out on the floor and checking stuff out than sitting in an uncomfortable chair for 4 straight hours listening to dudes read PowerPoint slides. I'm okay with that, I guess, on its face. Like I'm willing to try something different as a veteran of many BlizzCons, but there's obviously some stuff shifting here, and I think it seems like the company has different expectations for how the show is going to go, and I think that's obvious in terms of the like the ticket limit per transaction. I think speaks to that. To me, it speaks to they're expecting fewer attendees overall. And yeah, the thing about every panel being on the arena stage is that, I mean, what I don't totally understand how that is going to work. Like you're going to have the Overwatch World Cup, like at the show, right? So
Yep.
is that going to be, that's going to be in the arena, right? That's what the arena is for. So is that going to be after all the panel stuff, or is it going to be like there's just panels on one day and the other day is Overwatch World Cup? Or like I have some questions about the overall like scheduling with the main stage presentation, but I mean, if a bunch more stuff shifts to smaller kind of presentations spread across the floor, then I think that could be more fun. I mean, what I tend to do at BlizzCons is like just beeline between panel stages and the media lounge and whatever. If we're working, then doing whatever we're supposed to be doing. And, you know, I don't like if my friends are there, I don't really see them because I'm just doing that stuff. And even if we're hanging out, if we're watching a panel together, it's not like we're having a conversation or like hanging out, right? Like we're sitting there listening to the presentation. So I don't know. It just from this one little post, like it seems like a pretty big shift compared to what we have grown used to over the last few shows.
Yeah, I will say that we don't know whether or not the Overwatch thing's happening inside that arena or whether it's happening inside the Overwatch arena, which is something they actually built, or whether
it might not be on site.
Well, I mean, it also might happen inside of like an arena they built inside of the facility, which is they did for a couple of years there too. They had a separate Overwatch area that had like limited seating you could go into and watch stuff at. So we'd have to see how that goes. They are bringing back the charity auction, which is always a highlight of the event for me. I love seeing what comes out of the Blizzard vault and goes up on for sale for charity auction stuff. There's some really cool stuff that can happen in there as well. There's community contests as well. There's the Master Crafter, Colossal Creation, Epic FX, Dynamic Duo, and Best in Show. There's art contests, short film contests. There's a bunch of stuff going on. So if you're someone who's a community creator, that stuff is coming back with prizing and everything else. So be sure that you're, popping onto the website for BlizzCon stuff and seeing how you apply and enter and what the deadlines are for those sorts of things for what you're looking to participate in. A lot of the community stuff is something that is always awesome to check out and see. A lot of the cosplay stuff that happens is a big highlight for a lot of people. Again, it's happening on the BlizzCon Arena stage, which means that it's raffled off seating for community nights, so we won't necessarily be able to watch that live. Again, it would be something you watch on a screen or a monitor. So it's I don't know. Overall, to me, there's kind of this weird thing to this entire convention of, yes, you could watch it at home for free, or you could spend a bunch of money to go to the convention. And the highlight of the convention, as we've always talked about, is seeing the people. So you get to go and see all the people there. But when you actually go into the convention center hall, you might not actually be able to be inside the room with anyone who's doing any of the announcements or panels or discussions or anything that's happening, which it seems strange to me. It feels weird to think that, like, if I want to attend the what's next in WoW panel or the art panel or whatever it is, there's just a chance I just don't get in to see it. I have to watch it on a screen somewhere anyways, which is it's really unfortunate. So I personally feel like this is, as you said, trying to create a much more intimate show with potentially fewer tickets sold. As I mentioned, potentially not using the entire convention center. Maybe they aren't renting the whole place out for it. I don't know, but it'll be curious to see what the schedule looks like, what the map looks like of the entire place. Once we actually get that information in, and we can dive into this a bit deeper. But for now, be paying attention for this coming Saturday, July 8th. That's going to be first round of ticket sales, and the next is on the 22nd. As you mentioned, BlizzCon tickets sell out ridiculous, like within 1.5 seconds if you're not clicking. Typically with these systems, for how you buy tickets, there's like that first initial wave that gets in. It might be, Jason and his wife and one of his kids all trying to get tickets for Jason at the same time. So if all three of them get in, obviously, once tickets have been secured, two of them might drop out, which then means that after about 15 minutes, after that first wave of people have bought out the tickets, more tickets get released. So it's one of those, like, keep trying for 30 minutes after, the actual time goes up for it, because you might end up being in a situation where you get in for the next wave of tickets that are being released by people who aren't going to buy them, right? I've definitely had years where it was, it was supposed to go off at 1 o'clock, and at 1 o'clock, I didn't get in, but then at 1:11, I suddenly got in and got tickets because someone canceled their order because of whatever reason they chose to cancel their order. So it's worth trying for that 30 minutes afterwards, and seeing if you can get tickets for it if that's something you're wanting to do. It is quite the trip. It is a once in a lifetime experience for sure. The people you meet there become, solidified friends for a long time, and you can really be around your tribe and around such a wonderful group. And there's going to be community events, I'm sure, surrounded by. There's always a Wowhead party, and we haven't done a World of Podcasts, obviously, in a very long time. I don't know if they are planning anything for this year or not, but we'd have to wait and see what else sort of community-wise there might be happening there. So we'll have to, I don't know, I'll be curious to see what sort of pops up over the next couple of months now that things are a little bit more firm. And obviously after, once we move into August, once people have secured tickets and the ticket sales stuff is done, you'll start seeing a lot more start coming out information wise. So hopefully, as I mentioned before, Jason and I get media. We've gotten media since we started doing the show, which has been wonderful, and such a blessing for us. So we hope to continue to be able to get media and be able to bring you guys, exclusive interviews and our experiences and what's going on with it for all the show stuff. So
yeah, hopefully we're working to show this year. I mean, a lot of stuff, like I said, a lot of stuff has changed, and before it was sort of just assumed. I mean, we've always had a good relationship with the company, and I think we've gotten a lot of great event audio working with the company at various events that they've done, whether it's PAX East or whether it's BlizzCon. It's always a privilege and a treat to be able to sit down with WoW devs and kind of pick apart, their process and stuff that's coming together, and give people an idea of what to expect or be excited for with the new stuff coming to the game. So, hopefully we'll get a chance to do that again this time. And I feel like a part of like BlizzCon coming back is just, we got to rip the Band-Aid off to some degree. Like the first one back out of the gate is probably going to be weird because it's been a long time and a lot of stuff's different. And there's still a lot of weirdness swirling around the company as, the acquisition saga continues. So who knows, it might be another couple of years of, BlizzCon's just a weird, it's never going to be like it was in like 2015, 16, 17 ever again, right? Like even after 18 it was different, and 19 was a great show, but it's never going to be like that again no matter what. And so it's, in that regard, I think it's smart to try to present a different type of experience for people at the event, and I'm sure they'll learn a lot from running the show this year.
They always do.
It's I'm getting more excited about it as it becomes more real as we get closer. We're 4 months out now, so I think there are probably still at least some people that I only ever see at BlizzCon that I will probably catch out that way, and hopefully get a chance to make it down to campus earlier in the week and say hi to some people that work on the games that I've known for a while. I mean, because I really do. We have some contacts at the studio that I just appreciate their hard work on the game overall all these years so much, and it's always a treat to be able to spend some time with them. So it's BlizzCon season it's usually just like a lot of stress for us because we're always worried about like, okay, are we going to be working it, and if so, like what are our expectations, what are our goals, what do we want to bring to the show, and how can we work with the company to accomplish that, what does the company want us to do, and on down the line, and like, is it going to manifest itself to how much money am I going to need to spend? It's it's not like a vacation for us really, like it's I don't know.
Treat. It's special, but it's
so many different things rolled into one, right? Like it's so many different obligations and pressure and everything else, but it is also like a vacation and like summer camp or like something like that. It's a whole amalgamation of all these different emotions and experiences. It's crammed into like 4 or 5 days for the trip. So hopefully, if I do end up going out there this year, which I think I'm going to go whether or not we're working, but hopefully I don't end up like with multiple, ear and sinus infections for the duration of the trip.
God,
that would be nice.
We got COVID or whatever last time I was there. It was terrible. Yeah.
Well, I mean, my entire head was just infected everywhere. So I was pretty miserable throughout the whole show weekend, unfortunately. That sucked pretty. I got off the plane and my sinuses blew up, and then the whole rest of the weekend was pretty tough. So I have a sinus infection right now. It's fantastic. Like ever since that event, it's like I kind of get them periodically, and it's not really any fun. But those are the sacrifices you have to make in the fast-paced world of WoW podcasting. So
exactly.
That's what I'm prepared to make said sacrifices.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create, as well as doing things like going to BlizzCon, which is wonderful. So today I'm giving a special shout out to Alianas, Arajian, Butter, Celian, Kapawi, Max, and Shorel. Thank you so much. As well as to all of our other patrons for everything you give. We really appreciate all the support. It helps us pay the bills, keep the lights on with the podcast going, and plan for things like BlizzCon, where we can hopefully be able to, make this all happen and create more content for everyone else. The Discord channel and whatnot is something I used to do all the time inside that TSE channel for our patrons, where I'm able to post up pictures. I bring down a nice camera and take a whole bunch of shots of BlizzCon stuff, and I end up throwing them all up in there. So folks can actually, sort of follow along with our adventures while we're there, which is great. So yeah, thank you again to all of our patrons. You can find our Patreon over at patreon.com/thestartingzone. No new patrons this week, but the support's been great. So thank you again for all the support.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, patrons. It's been so many years we've been doing the show, and so many years you've been supporting us. We really do appreciate it. And I mean, I think of the way my setup was when I first started doing the show on a regular basis to how my setup is now, just how much better my setup is for audio. And I mean, all that stuff comes from patron support and giving us the ability to keep our stuff sounding good and, keep stuff online and where you can get it and help us, get the show on the schedule and make it happen. So, we appreciate it a lot. It really does make a huge difference. It's how the show functions at this point, really. And we'll be back next week with a big patch week episode, dive into I imagine we'll have official patch notes by Thursday. So we'll get in there with all the final changes that are shipping for next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, that's going to wrap up this episode of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode, this is episode 585. Oh my God, I almost went back 400 episodes. Or leave us a comment on the show. You can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official episode for Starting Zone podcast. We are probably going to be throwing in some bonus episodes coming up over the next couple of months. We're getting pretty close to 600, so we're probably going to want to get that in there just before BlizzCon, and that means that we'll be doing some bonus episodes. I think getting those back on track and maybe doing some patron call-ins or doing something like that. We'll figure it out, but we'll let you all know. You can find the show notes for this episode over at thestartingzone.com. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback, ask a question, or email us, you can do that at thestartingzone@gmail.com or join us on Twitter, or you can join our Discord, as I mentioned earlier, thestartingzone.com/Discord. We'll bring you over there. And if you want to get your hands on some TSE gear, you can find that over at TeePublic. That's teepublic.com/stores/thestartingzone, where you get all the sweet designs on shirts and mugs and stickers and all that kind of fun stuff. And Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
Best place to find me, as always, is over on Twitter. Well, for however much longer that may be, but I am over there. So if you want to say hi, you can find me over there at Shieldwald. And you can also find me streaming WoW on twitch.tv/Shieldwald. Stream schedule might be weird this week. It's a holiday and stuff. I don't know. Normally it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday, 7:30 Eastern. Again, I'm probably not streaming tonight. Probably tomorrow I will be, and then Sunday is going to be up in the air. And I also have a channel over at youtube.com/Shieldwald, which I push stream out to sometimes. So you can check that out as well. But yeah, we'll be doing Aberrus and Keys, and then next week we'll get into patch stuff. So come check it out.
Yeah, if you're trying to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey. As you said, as long as that's still kicking around. I hear Instagram's coming up with some sort of Twitter-based thing that everyone might migrate to. I don't know. There's all sorts of them now. We'll have to find out I'll have to try and catch up with what the newfangled stuff is that all the kids are using these days.
Yeah, hopefully you catch whatever that is on Twitter before you get rate limited, and then you can't see any more tweets.
Oh my God, yeah.
The other thing too is I guess they're breaking TweetDeck or making it like a horrendous value proposition, and a lot of people I know use TweetDeck exclusively, so that's going to be even fewer people I follow using the service. It's a shame. It used to be so much fun, and it's not as much fun anymore.
As a note from the podcasting perspective, we had integration for getting our tweets out that our episodes were going live. That broke probably 2 months ago, so I've been individually crafting all of the tweets that go out for our episodes since then. It's still integrated with Facebook and still works with our Facebook stuff, but apparently that broke a while ago, and so the first day it broke, I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll go over to Twitter, copy and paste, and make all this work. So they are generating work and making bad decisions left, right, and center, I would say. You can also find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD, or over on YouTube at youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.